Steven here. So this is going to be another one of our discussions of Pokemon side game music. Today. We usually do these in the evening. We had to reschedule this. Thanks to everyone for their patience. Um, for Pokemon Masters EX, this is the mobile game released in 2019. Before we get into all that, Anne, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and where we're at, or where your podcast is at, I should say.
Yeah, so I'm Anne. I run Pikapi Podcast. It's a Pokemon anime podcast going through all the episodes of the anime in order. And right now we are in Hoenn, and Ash is about to hit his 7th gym battle. He just met the gym leaders the last episode I did, and we're working on his actual gym battle fight. And the dumbest move he's ever invented that I love so much, and I wish it showed up more.
Oh, is this the Thunder Armor, or is this something else?
It's Thunder
This is the Tate and Liza battle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah,
I
so
love it.
since they're in the space city, it's obvious they're a reference to the Gemini constellation.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, we know from some extracted info that the original plan was to have Wally set up shop there at some point.
Oh.
But because they needed to plug double battles, and like I said, Gemini constellation, they added they're technically fraternal twins. There's a trope called always identical twins, where even if they're opposite genders, they almost always look very similar to each other. I think there is, to be honest, a good story to be told from the perspective of Tate and Liza, and possibly also their parents if they ever decide to go that route. I think
I
it would
mean,
be
parents are there, so the
they're in the
nepotism is
anime, both
strong
of them,
in the
yeah.
family.
But it's interesting from a perspective of, like, I think canonically neither one of the parents is telepathic. So I think there's a good story to be told there. But the actual gym battle is kind of off to the side there in the anime because of
Yeah.
this contrivance that they have in there. All right, well that'll be interesting. So, um, and although they look similar, they're both in this game we're going to discuss, and they have some
They are.
interesting stuff in there, which is kind of interesting for lack of a better term. As far as my stuff, some of you will know that I think it was late last month. I forget exactly the day. I released the latest episode that is a combination of interviews from um, Twin Cities Con 2025 back in, let's see, November, where I interviewed the winner of the Smash Brothers tournament and also a musician I ran into there, who actually happens to be from Madison, and he was in that one. So that was interesting. And then the other thing that I did, let's see, in that episode, that's our discussion of, oh gosh, it was right before Pokemon Go, and I'm trying to remember it's Super Mystery Dungeon, duh. So I know the Mystery Dungeon episodes tend to be pretty popular, so if you haven't picked that episode up, please do. Of course, obviously our live stream there is still in the thing here, but this is the nice, polished, edited version. Let's see, next episode should be Pokemon Go, the music of that. And then we go on from there. So those are fun ones. But yeah, so like I said, this is going to be the rough cut, obviously, of our discussion of the music of Pokemon Masters EX, the mobile game, which is still going on after a little over 6 years, almost 6.5. So we'll have a lot to talk about there. We'll talk about the game in our after topic. And we'll also, for our feedback section, not that I didn't get any feedback, I always appreciate feedback, but I decided to talk to Anne about, she had been talking about trades in a recent thing in the anime, and we're going to use that as our featured discussion topic because it is handled somewhat interestingly there. So, all right. Well, let's see here. Yeah. 1 second with this. Yeah. Untangle some of this here. Sorry, folks at home. I use this setup for various things, and this is one of them. All right, Anne, can you talk for a little bit? We didn't get your level set.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm talking right now. Talking, 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 talk, 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 talk. This is great vamping. I'm sorry. I couldn't come up with anything on the fly. Hello, audience.
Okay.
How y'all doing?
Not sure why this is taking me so much there. Anne, can you talk a little bit more?
Yep. Let's see. What else is going on in the world of Pokemon that's worth talking about? I don't know. What do I have on my mind? I don't know. Lately, I've been like just screenshotting Ash's room and like looking at all the trophies and things he's collected over the years. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I've got a good level there.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to hit the record here. All right. We are recording on my end. I assume we're recording on your end as well.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. So leave a little bit of a pause, and then we will go from there. Hi, folks. Steven here. I'm on the phone with Anne from Pikapi Podcast. And in our continuing series of Pokemon side game music discussions, we've reached what is the last Sun and Moon era side game. This is Pokémon Masters EX, the mobile gacha game. Originally, by the way, it was called just Pokemon Masters. I think they added the EX for a little bit of SEO and to differentiate it a little bit from some other stuff. Pokemon Masters is kind of a not super specific, or whatever you want to call it, title there within the franchise lexicon. But in any case, this game was released in August of 2019, the 29th actually. Let's see, I remember a little bit about the lead out from this because I did get to play it a little bit early before it released. I actually got to play it at the 2019 Pokemon World Championships in Washington, D.C. That was right before, of course, we had that nice, nice isn't probably the right word, but that was right before we had that gap of several years, of course, for reasons. But in any case, I did get to try it out there. I thought it was okay there. I also did the Sword and Shield demo they had there, which was a little more interesting to me. And do you remember when this game came out?
I don't remember a lot about when it came out specifically. I do remember many years after it came out, there would be like demos and things for it at the various conventions I attended. And then some years after it came out, I did download it and play, and have been downloading and trying to play for many years since. Just it, like Pokemon Go, it tends to steal all the data and crash my phone. So one of these days I'll get one of my old phones before I send it off to recycling and see if I can just have a dedicated phone just for it and do nothing else.
Sorry to hear that. I haven't had that problem. I definitely had performance issues with Go before I upgraded my phone a couple times. So this one tends to have a large data footprint because of all the stuff it has to get downloaded for it. But yeah, I did play it when it came out. I haven't played it as much recently because I tended to play this game a lot in the evening before going to bed. And now we have Pokemon Sleep as of a couple years ago. So that has been taking up more of my time. But I did obviously play it a little bit this week for this. And I do try to pick it up every so often, especially if I've exhausted some of the other Pokemon stuff there. As far as who was behind this was developed by DENA, capital D, lower E, capital N, capital A, which I know was a little bit of a talking point back then. But as far as who worked on the music, now, Anne, you have a couple names. Who are the music directors for this one?
Yeah, I have the sound director, Yuka Watanabe. She's worked on a lot of games as the sound programmer, a sound director, sound scripter, for things like Castlevania, like a lot of the Naruto games, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So she's definitely someone who's worked in the industry for a long time, and we've heard of her a lot. She's not done a ton of composing. She's listed as a composer for one of the Castlevania games and Rumble Roses, but for the most part, yeah, sound director seems to be her main to fame.
All right, and then there's another name on there, right?
Yes, sorry. I've navigated away from that page and now we are gone. So give me a second. Oh, there we go. God. We go. We've got Keishi Yamamuro, and unfortunately, I cannot find as much of him. He's worked as a sound director before on games.
All right. Well, on my end, I looked up the composers. Let's see. One of those is Shota Kageyama, a very frequently popping up name within the Pokemon franchise. I think he started working in like Gen 2 and has been an on and off collaborator, but he did work on this game. And then we have Haruki Yamada, who I found has worked on the Warriors series, so like Samurai Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, also Street Fighter 6, the latest entry in that series. Let's see, I forget how long that's actually been out. It did come out at the Switch 2 launch for that system, but I think it existed prior to that. Any particular notes on either of those, Anne?
I've definitely, I mainlined Hyrule Road Warriors Age of Calamity. Yeah, I've heard the name Haruki Yamada, like him and his little mandolin. So yeah, that's nice.
I think I actually saw a picture of him with a mandolin or some other similar instrument when I looked up his stuff there. So seems to be quite fond of it. As far as the overall style, well, I've listed this as European, classical, but also electronic. When we get to our game discussion, we've learned some things about this game, and we'll probably be a little more specific there. But a lot of accordion, strings, horns, some of which is live musicians. Also a lot of electronic stuff, depending on what they go with. Also kind of a mix of original stuff and game stuff. And do you think that's sort of a fair summarization of the musical content?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like I said, we'll have more to say as time goes on. But we've each picked, as usual, 3 different songs from this game. Let's see, I picked the Pokemon Masters League lobby, also sometimes referred to as the Pokemon Center theme because it is used in that song. Adventure Awaits, and Jigglypuff's song rock version. There is like a sound testy thing that has a lot of the regularly appearing music, although there's also a lot of stuff that rotates in and out of the game there. So these names are kind of official, kind of not. It's going to be a mix here. But in any case, Anne, what were the 3 songs you picked?
I picked Paseo Mountains, Battle Kahuna, and Battle Decisive Cynthia.
Yeah. So, as you might guess, Paseo is the name of the region in this game. It's a sort of fictitious region. Not sure exactly how that's pronounced, but all the same, let's go ahead and start off with one of my songs. This is one you'll hear pretty early into the game. This is the PML lobby, or sometimes referred to as the Pokemon Center because it incorporates that there. There's also a number of variations. As we're recording this, there's sort of a Chinese/Oriental New Year version playing in the game as we record this. But this is the one that plays in the lobby where you there's usually a bunch of people standing around. There's also a couple desks you can go up to, stuff like that. As far as the actual instrumentation, there's some accordion, there's some bells. I think there are some strings in there, but it's very welcoming, as you might expect. And I just really liked, actually, I like the fact that they integrated part of the Pokemon Center theme since it's supposed to be loosely corresponding to that. But I also like the original part. It's just really a beautiful song. Anne, what were your kind of thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun way to blend in the Pokemon Center theme with, like, as you say, its own original melody, and like the fact that you don't hear the Pokemon Center theme until a little bit into the track. It's got some incredible harmonies at parts of it and gives off very hometown vibes. So it's just very comforting and vibey.
Yeah, no, great work there. One thing I should note, so when this game originally came out, not long after, I had put together another episode of my radio show from 8 to 64 on the low power FM station here in Madison. And I used this one there. I had to get kind of clever because this was before there was that sound test jukebox feature, so I didn't have access to it that way. But one thing I found a little difficult is it was hard for me to find a good like loop point in there because it just flowed maybe a little too well, if that is a possible thing there. And I think that's also maybe an issue with some quote unquote issue with some of the other songs here is that it's hard to find a natural point to like fade out there. You know, not the worst thing ever or anything like that. But I did kind of want to note that. Anything else you want to add, Anne?
No.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Paseo Mountains track. I figure if we pronounce it in enough different ways, we'll get it right at some point. But Anne, this is one of your picks. Why don't you go ahead and introduce it?
Yes, so this is such a moody track. It starts out with these like drums and either a vibraphone or some sort of struck mallet instruments. There's accordions, this beautiful flute going over top of it. So it's very mysterious and evocative of some kind of story. And I like it a lot. It's just kind of got an atmosphere to it.
Yeah, I put it down as mildly precarious, which is not unusual for a mountains theme.
Right.
But it definitely gives you that kind of taste there. And I think this wasn't necessarily my favorite, but it's still very well produced and good there. I think this one is used in some of the cutscenes that you see in some of the things where folks will be out in the mountainous part of the region. So that is why it is called that there. Anything else you needed to let us know about this one, Anne?
Nah, just that it definitely like evokes a place and time and a sense of space that you're in, which is absolutely what you want for the game.
All right. Well, in that case, let's move on to my second pick. This is Adventure Awaits is the name. We're pretty sure on this one because it is in that jukebox section there. This is used for the Explore menu and a few submenus of that. So you're going to hear it quite a bit. This is a combination of horns and strings. And what I really liked about this one, it sort of gives you a sense of the wide open world that this game has. Even though it's just a menu theme, it gives you, especially as the game has gone on and gotten more stuff added to it, there's been more and more stuff there. Probably a little overwhelming at this point if you go back to it or just start it. But I just love listening to this one because it does have that sort of adventurous quality of all these different places you can go and things you can do in the game, and then I think it conveys that very well. Anne, what was your sort of reaction?
I put in my notes that it's giving very high school graduation feels, but it is very lofty and heroic, and I say wide open world, uncharted future. You can go anywhere, any sorts of things can happen. I love the instrumentation. It's very orchestral. Yeah.
It's just one of the ones I love listening to, and that's one reason I picked it out. So it definitely made an impression on me.
Yeah.
And it just very, very, very warm feeling there. All right. Well, so far we've mostly talked about original music, other than a little bit of the Pokemon Center theme, but there is a fair amount of stuff that's brought in from the main series games. So, Anne, this is your second pick. This is the Battle Against the Island Kahuna. Obviously, this is brought in from Sun and Moon. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so we've heard the Sun and Moon theme before, but this is a very fun remake of it because or reimagining of it, I guess, because it starts off a little dramatic, but then like 15 seconds in, it's so joyful and fun. Kind of bringing in the Kahuna theme and the general, Pokemon battle style of music, but with the strings to kind of add a dramatic tension to it, but it never quite loses the fun and joy that is a Pokemon game. And especially since Sun and Moon, like a lot of the discourse in that game is about how kids need to be supported by adults and allowed to have fun and fall down and make mistakes and fail basically, and like not lose sight of the fun of the world and the safety that adults provide and all these things. Like, it just felt very special to me that even in this grand dramatic Pokemon battle against the island Kahuna, that they took special care to bring in this fun, vibrant joy into the track.
Yeah, it does have an interesting progression from from the drum starting to sort of actually intimidating horns to the exciting synth. Like I said, this is based on the Kahuna battle from the Sun and Moon games. One thing I found interesting, of course, this originally came from a 3DS game, but the instrumentation, and I'm sure this is intentional, sounds actually very much like the DS generations. I mean, we did have Shota Kageyama, which may be one of the reasons that a lot of this game stuff is represented the way it is, other than obviously, wishes of the Pokemon Company and whatnot. But it may have given that a certain flavor in there. I don't know. Anne, is that something you noticed?
Not with this track. I noticed with another one that I didn't put down that like certain of the tracks are very like old style synthes and like like older style instruments, older style chiptune things, and then others are like full orchestral, like natural sounding strings and horns. And I thought that was very interesting, but I like couldn't listen to enough tracks to like figure out the rhyme or reason behind any of it other than this sounded cool, this sounded like a fun reimagining, or this brought back some nostalgia. So I definitely think it's intentional, as you say. I just haven't quite put together my thoughts on what that intention is.
All right. Well, I did want to bring in, we've got I Like Pokémon Masters in the chat here, and I did want to highlight a comment that they put in there, which was they really like this Kahuna battle theme. They did say that the stuff is remixes can be a little bit hit or miss in there, and we get to I think Anne's third pick. I'll have a thing to say there. I don't think she picked a bad song, but not necessarily the version I would have picked. So a little foreshadowing there. They also mentioned they like the third Unova Neo Champion theme. So that also ties in that there are multiple versions of some of the songs in there. There's been a lot of music. If you go in right now, I think you only really have access to the music that's in the game right now based on what events are going on. But there is a ton of content in this one, and you'll have quite a bit of time if you decide to go through all of everything that's been published there over the 6 or so years this game has been around. So in any case, before we move on to the Kahuna theme, and anything else you wanted to toss in?
No, it's just, like I said, it just fills me with joy. And that's what I want from anything located to Sun and Moon.
All right, well, let's move on to my third pick. This is Jigglypuff's song rock version, or Jigglypuff's theme rock version. So I do want to give a little background on this one. It came in during obviously a Jigglypuff-related event that was in the game. Basically, it plays during a cutscene in there, and it's this rock-focused version of Jigglypuff's theme, which dates back to Red and Blue. Yes, it shows up in the anime, but it is based on a song from the actual games, where you meet a Jigglypuff in one of the Pokemon centers and talk to it. This is a rock version with electric guitar and also a fair bit of electronica. So this kind of struck me for a couple of reasons as well. It was partially because I think this may have been inspired by an animated short that came out sometime before this that involved the Jigglypuff that had a somewhat different voice that wasn't as pleasing and stuff. And I think they may have done this, may be a takeoff on that. And I don't suppose you remember that short.
Not really well, but that I don't doubt that there's a lot of things in Masters EX where they're like foreshadowing other games or anime things. So like, absolutely, they probably did this on purpose. That's an awesome concept though. 'Cause I love this track. I love this track so much.
Yeah, I tried to get this particular sync pair because I wanted to set up a musical group trio. We'll talk more about the
Fun.
game mechanics later, but unfortunately, I was never able to get. But I do remember this sort of theme. This was a musically themed story within the game, and sort of the payoff towards the end was you got this rock version of the Jigglypuff theme. I do wish they had done more with it. It's only supposed to play for maybe like a minute or so while you're going through that dialogue and whatnot. But definitely look up this event here and look through it, since I don't think you can get to it right now. I'm not sure when they're or if they're going to replay it again, but I wanted to call this one out for that reason. Like I said, would like a fuller version that went deeper on there, but this was a pretty cool addition.
Wow, this is
All right, well,
amazing. It feels like an anime opening theme song. Like, it's so. I'd be so sad if Jigglypuff sang this and I fell asleep.
yeah, I don't think, maybe not with this one. Maybe that this works the other way. But in any case, Anne, let's move on to your third pick. This is the decisive Cynthia battle theme.
Mhm.
So there are actually several versions of Cynthia's theme. Can you sort of, like I said, I don't think it's a bad version or anything, but why don't you go ahead and explain why you picked this one?
Okay, so I will tell you why I think it's awesome. That is, this one just comes out hard and dramatic, like Mama Mamai Shirona should. And like, it's this gothic horror Victorian version of her battle or her theme song. It has this very cool like distortion world transition, adding in like some Giratina vibes. Very Volo, and like the thing getting played harder than that piano is anyone in the audience who thinks the Giratina motif was random. Like, this song makes me so happy. Cynthia's on our side. She could take over the world with this song. It's perfect. It's no notes. It's amazing.
Well, let's see. Yeah,
Fair enough.
piano horns and a fair bit of electronic. I did listen to one of the other versions, which I thought was a little more impressive to me. Although, to be honest, this is not a bad underlying theme from the games. The Cynthia battle theme is good, but it seems like it's had more of an effect on other folks than it's had on me for whatever reason. Like when I've played it Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, or Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, or when they bring it back as Volo's battle theme, at least as an inspiration for it, in Legends Arceus, like, it's never hit me as hard as it seems to for some other folks. Maybe I was over leveled. Well, not for the Volo battle, but for the Cynthia battles, maybe I was over leveled and it didn't impress on me. Or maybe there's a vocal version of Cynthia's battle theme that was used at like I want to say 2011. It was one of the years it was in San Diego for the World Championships. They brought out one of the folks from Pokemon Smash, the show, the side show that they have there. They brought her in and they did a vocal rendition, which I don't think worked too well in there. It was better if you listen to the version where they recorded it separately. But this theme, like I said, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't have the visceral reaction to it that some folks have. If you do, that's fine.
It could be the
More power to you.
PTSD talking. I was not over leveled when I faced Cynthia.
Yeah, so we'll figure that one out there, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of a smorgasbord of music there. Like I said, a good chunk of the music in this game is original, although I think it still hews pretty well to the franchise. And like I said, some of that maybe Shota Kageyama being involved helped ground it a little bit. But one thing we should definitely mention, there's not full voice acting in this game, but there is definitely voice acting. There's little quips and lines here for pretty much all the characters, except the main ones, of course. You're a silent protagonist in this one, more or less. But all the characters, the human characters in the game, do have voice lines of some sort, usually for reactions and stuff like that. And if you go back through the archives of this channel and my podcast and stuff, you'll notice that I have interviewed a fair number of folks there, and they've had different things to say. But Anne, what's sort of your reaction to the voice acting in this one?
Well, it's like I kind of like it because, again, the main selling point of this game is that you can interact with these characters that we've grown to love from the games and or the anime. So there's that. Because it happened after did not tell because I'm not as familiar with some of their voices, but like nothing gets you like hearing Sarah's Ash come at you or Rika's Ash.
Yeah, it should mention that Ash Ketchum does. We didn't pick out the Pokémon Masters version of 1, 2, 3, which was in this game briefly.
Gosh, it was such a tough choice.
Definitely look up that content, but yeah, there are a couple of voice actor crossovers from the anime, and stuff. And I should note, I think there's only like Japanese and English voice acting. You could choose one of the two, but not for all the other languages this game comes in for whatever. I guess they just didn't have the time or budget to do everything in there, which I guess is a little bit of a shame. But finding that many folks. One thing I did want to note is that sometimes these lines. Go ahead, Anne.
No, I was just saying R.I.P. Sasha, but it's just joking. Carry on.
All right. But I did want to note that some of the folks who did this would record their lines well before the character would be added. Some of you may remember that in 2024, I had interviewed, I think it was Jordan Dash Cruz, who was the voice of Tierno in this game. And it was his character had just been added a few months earlier. But he had recorded, he said, during the pandemic, so that meant 2020 or 2021. So sometimes there have been long delays on some of this stuff there. So I guess that's a little factoid there. But I think it does okay. I can understand why it's not fully voice acted because they keep adding new events and stuff. And they'd have to keep bringing those folks in to do all that, which would be, obviously not cheap, obviously, and stuff like that. We're still waiting for full voice acting in the games, which may or may not be coming. There are some rumors going around.
That would be something.
Overall, I do like it. I think it's a nice touch. There are also certain characters that interact with each other when you choose them for your team because they have some sort of commonality there. So be on the lookout for that. But overall, I think the production is fantastic. The variety is great from all different generations of the franchise. And they have some excellent originals and some great remixes. Not everything is necessarily a home run, but this is really good stuff. I said when we introduced this at the end of the last episode, the last discussion, that I was anticipating this on the level of a mystery dungeon game. And that is still how I feel about it. So some definite great stuff. And I assume you have a similar opinion on this one?
Yeah, I'm really impressed with like all the reimaginings of tracks that are from the games, all the original tracks as well, like the variety of music, the variety of just different concepts of it, the fact that like for different events and periods of the year they will change it, like the Christmas theme, or like they'll have a various holiday overlays and like new remixes of music and all sorts of things that just gives so much opportunity for reinvention and creativity and trying new things. And I love that about it.
Yeah, so if for some reason you've had this game on mute while playing it, do give it a listen because it is 100% worth it. Like I said, not saying every song is a home run, but there's a lot of great stuff in there. They clearly put a lot of thought and effort into this, so very much appreciated. But if you think we missed anything, you can always give us a comment. You can give a comment on one of these videos. You can drop us an email, pokepress@gmail.com, or look for @Pokepress on Blue Sky. But, and we will try to work that into a future discussion. Now, this is where we usually do our feedback section, and not that I didn't get any feedback, but there wasn't a thing that sort of prompted a discussion topic. So I asked Anne about something she recently discussed in her podcast, which was the use of trading of Pokemon in the anime, which it's a core game mechanic, but we don't see it in the anime, and it's presented in a very specific way in the anime. There's only a handful of notable trades there, and I kind of wanted to talk about it for a few minutes as here, to sort of provoke some discussion and whatnot there, provoke some thought. But I'll start off. Let's talk about, first of all, how it is in the game. First of all, it's a very core mechanic in the game. It was built into the original games to encourage networking and sort of a social aspect of the game, because there were Pokemon you couldn't get in your version of the game. There were Pokemon that needed to be traded to evolve and all that stuff. So it is a very core mechanic. In fact, I think just yesterday or the day before, I did some trading in Legends ZA to get, because I had to trade something to evolve at a Feebas to get in my Lotic. And, but in the anime, it is very, very sparse in terms of how it's done. There's like just a few notable ones, and it's sometimes presented as more like, I know when it came in black and white, there was a specific evolution where you have to trade, I think it's Carol Blast and Shelmet with each other, and maybe there's even an item involved, I can't remember. But you have to trade those two specific Pokemon, and they made a whole episode about that. I can think of some reasons why trading doesn't show up as often in the anime, but Anne, I'll give you a chance to sort of lay down your own foundation there, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, so the specific discussion that we had on my show was I had noticed that we were doing the Huntail and Gorbis episode, and they have a branched evolution out of Clamperl involved trading with an item. And in that episode, they were very vague on how that evolution happened. Like the kid gave their Pokemon the item, and then the Pokemon went back in their Pokeball and sometime later evolved. And that is very much not how it happens in the games. And my working theory is that Nurse Joy accidentally switched the Pokeballs and just didn't want to own up to it. And that's how these kids got the wrong Pokemon, and now they're traded and have evolved. But Logan emailed back and had a comment on like how that's very much how it is with evolution for trading with items in the anime overall. Like Misty's Politoed grabbed a King's Rock and then just randomly evolved later on, that kind of thing. And it's, yeah, as you say, trading in the anime, because we are following one singular character whose name is Ash, and he decided very early on, like a theme of the Indigo League is everything you thought you knew about how the games are supposed to go, everything you do to be a competitive player in the game, Ash is going to do something different. And that includes trading and catching all the Pokemon. Is like, no, actually, I don't want to trade. I want to build up my core team, etc. So as you say, we don't see it very often. We often see it between other players who are not Ash. And but yeah, the item specific trading has always been so very vague, and that intrigues me that they can't just say we traded this Pokemon with an item. It's always just got to be this Pokemon just held an item and it happened to happen. And I'm not quite sure narratively why.
Yeah. Maybe that Clamperl clerical error on Nurse Joy's part is your theory there. But let's go over some of the trades that did happen in the anime. First of all, there's the, let's see, Butterfree for Raticate, and then back again on the St. Anne.
Yes, for Raticate.
That may have been the trade back. First of all, it keeps them on the ship longer as it's about to sink. But also, there was obviously the Butterfree episode a couple episodes later or whatever, which is an interesting little pattern that shows up every so often. So that one, like I said, it's sort of the, I don't want to say death knell for trading, but it sort of shows why, I'm sure the writers don't like to put a lot of stuff into a character and then just have it go away.
No, but it does show like the relationship that Ash has with his Pokemon versus the conventional idea we all learned from the games, which is like, you want to trade for stronger Pokemon, you want to get the strongest Pokemon on your team, and Ash being like, nah, I just love Butterfree. It like, we have history.
and you get the experience bonus, of course.
Yeah.
And there's some checks and balances. And like I said, in the main series games, there are Pokemon you cannot get unless you trade, both as evolutions and also just in general. So then the next trait I remember is Jesse used to have a Lickitung, and I guess that never really resonated. So early in Johto, I think it's like almost an accident or something like that. I forget exactly how it plays out, but that's how she gets Wobbuffet, a Pokemon that in the games especially, I don't like it that much because, I mean, I'm not going to erase it from there, but I found it quite annoying because of how it's a disruptive Pokemon by design. And so I haven't liked it that much in the anime. I don't maybe hate it, but it's never been one of my favorites in there. So sorry, apologies to...
You can be the hero of truth. I'll be the hero of ideals. It's fine. I love Wobbuffet. That swap meet episode where everybody's trading Butt Ash and then Jesse accidentally trades Lickitung for a Wobbuffet and Wobbuffet just decides, I'm evil now. Oh gosh, I love it. I love my pun master Wobbuffet always just popping up to Solnasu everything.
Yeah, perhaps this is...
Yeah. I will love Wobbuffet where you will not. It's fine.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, this was one where the writers were kind of realized that Lickitung wasn't the most beloved of the main series, and it's like, all right. Then in there's some other ones, but in Diamond and Pearl, they heavily telegraph the Apom Weasel trade between Ash and Dawn, and eventually gets to points where they do in fact trade the two of them because Weasel wants to do more gym battles and stuff like that, and Apom seems to like contests more, and so they heavily telegraph this, and sort of make it to the forefront. Sort of the weird thing about that one though is that Apom evolves into Ampom and then goes off to play ping pong not too long after for whatever reason. Not sure
exactly. As Gary Oak himself has proved, you are allowed to have multiple dreams in life and change your career as you need to.
I suppose it just seems a bit odd that we didn't get to see more of it in contests after the trade there, but they needed to free up space on Dawn's team or something. So that's a little bit weird there, but they do heavily telegraph that and make sure to point out that it is the Pokemon's desire to sort of change trainers and change their outlook and stuff like that.
And that's always been an interesting trade for me, just because Apom is very devoted to Ash, followed Ash to Sinnoh when Ash left them behind, and I had a straight up crush on Ash at one for a long time. So it's just it's a very interesting dynamic between all four of those characters, Dawn and Buizel, and everything they've been through together. Ash and Buizel eventually going back to do a contest just for funsies, and just the fact that Pikachu still views Ambipom as a member of the team when they get into that final Masters 8 battle. It's just, there's a lot of fun character stuff going on there, and I really do love that dynamic for Ash, that he learns the other side of training, that it's not always kind of that bad experience he had with Butterfree and Raticate at the beginning. That you can still connect.
Yeah, and then I had mentioned in Gen 5, I believe it is, they had a specific trade relationship. It's the like I said, I think it's Carablast and Shelmet have to be traded with each other in order to exchange parts of their body to evolve into their final forms. That may have been a mandate from the Pokemon Company or Game Freak or whatever to, because it is such an obscure thing and a lot of folks don't know how to do that one. Perhaps is what necessitated that. There they have actually a scientist. It's framed as a research thingy about. They need to see it so they can study it. So that's sort of the explanation as to why that's happening there. So that's the conceit there. So I find it interesting that such a core mechanic is either sometimes just ignored, it is sometimes just, or is heavily telegraphed or explained or whatever like that. Or in the case of Lickitung, it means, you've kind of run your course there, I guess. So
I wouldn't say ignored, just because, again, it happens with so many characters of the day trading. It's kind of more, my weird it out part is why don't they not just say what's happening? Why do they have to pretend it just, and maybe that's part of the kayfabe of Pokemon, is they've not fully uncovered everything about their own world yet. So like again, the Huntail and Gorobus episode that started this all, like maybe that is part of what they're intentionally trying to do, is be like, we don't know, the Pokemon scientists don't know why Clamperl evolves the way it does. It's just, we just saw it happen. We don't actually know why. And maybe so they're trying to present that in the anime. That just seems a very high concept for a children's TV show. Like, why not just have them trade Pokemon? Why not just say they traded these with these specific items? Why present it as if it's a stone evolution that just happened wrong?
But yeah, so hopefully that gives you some things to think about. And if you have any thoughts on any of this or anything else we discussed in this episode, go ahead and give us a comment. You can give a comment in one of these videos if you're watching it. You can give us an email, pokepress@gmail.com, or find us on Blue Sky at Pokepress.
You can also find me at pikappypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, so that's always a place you can toss that in there. All right. Well, I think I had mentioned earlier, this is the last Sun and Moon era game. It came out a few months before Sword and Shield. And we always like to do a break where we do some specialty episodes in between generations. And so the first one we're going to do there is music from other monster battling games. So Pokemon is by no means the only thing in its niche. It is by far the most successful one, but there are definitely other games, large and small, in there. And we're going to pick some of those and pick a song from each. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be picking songs from Monster Sanctuary, which is a combination Metroidvania monster battler game, as well as Cassette Beast, which is more of a straight reinterpretation of Pokemon. Anne is going to do some research and pick some stuff out there, but I think we're going to have an interesting discussion about these games and the music and how it sort of compares stylistically to some of the other stuff in there. But I am looking forward to that. It's one I've wanted to do for a long time. And I assume you are similarly interested.
I am excited. I will be discovering probably a lot of new games that I maybe have not played before. So,
yeah, there are a lot of choices out there, so certainly not a lack in that area. But until then, Anne, thank you very much for being on.
Thank you.
This has been Stephen Reich. All right, folks, thanks. All right, so we sometimes do a little pause here. Andy, you need to take a quick break, or can we go on to the game discussion?
I'm good.
All right, let me just get a little water there. So yeah, luckily, like I said, I used to play this game a lot more prior to Pokemon Sleep, because I would play this before I went to bed. But I have a lot to say here, and the notes are quite brief, but I have plenty to say. So we'll leave a little pause and go straight into our game discussion. All right, well, we got plenty of discussion out of the music, but we also have to talk about the game here. And since it's been live for over 6 years at this point, we have a lot to say. But let's start off with sort of the basic game mechanics. So this game revolves around what are called sync pairs, which are a trainer and one of their Pokemon. A lot of the characters have more than one in the game that they have, and those are each separate sync pairs. Mm-hmm. And sort of the gist of the battling system is that you build a team of usually 3, although it can technically be 1 or 2, which it sometimes is, sync pairs, and you have, each of them has a set of moves as well as some trainer actions. And for the moves in particular, you need to have, there's this meter that fills at the bottom. It has a couple things at the start, and whenever you use a move, generally speaking, with a few exceptions, it'll use up a couple segments of that, anywhere between 1 and like 4. Maybe it goes higher than that, but generally they're in that range. And usually the more segments it uses, the more damage it does, or the more powerful it is, and stuff like that. And your goal is to knock out the Pokemon on the other side before they do the same to you. And there's other mechanics in there. Every character has what's called a, I forget if it's called a sync move or whatever, but that's sort of their super move that they get when you use a certain number of other moves in there, the counter goes to 0, and you can use the super move from for your various characters and stuff. And that's sort of how the gameplay goes about. Anne, how do you feel about that kind of the main gameplay here?
Well, there's a lot about it that I love, because always have loved the triple battle mechanic. And then I love it that this kind of has a real time element. It kind of like it's very different. Like it's very jarring if you're used to playing like the general turn-based games that Pokemon has always had, but like now that we're in this era of Legends EA, like it's really fun and a different way to do Pokemon and like Pokken as well. And then like the sync moves kind of remind me of your Z moves in Sun and Moon. It's like there's a lot of good happening here, a lot of good ideas. And I won't say it's always easy to play, but I do like a lot of the elements that they're introducing in this game.
Yeah, there's some borrowing from, and perhaps some elements of this game may have been borrowed into later games. Yeah, it's a shared meter in this one. So you're jumping back and forth. You choose which ones to target. The CPU has certain rules that it goes by. So that's interesting. And like I said, there are all these. So that's the sync pair mechanic. And as far as actually acquiring characters, there's a variety of ways. There's a main story where you get a decent number of them, but this is a gacha game, and for a lot of them, you need to spend in-game currency, which you can buy extra with real money, and you can acquire new ones via a random drawing system, and they rotate out what happens every so often. And some of the more different characters. Like it seems like a lot of the more popular characters are the ones who get alternate costumes, alternate Pokemon that go with them, so on and so forth. Seem to get the most of those for kind of, I guess, obvious reasons. But you don't know what you're going to get with that, and so I don't know how you feel about that, Anne.
Like the
acquisition of new characters.
Like, well, I mean, obviously, the characters I love. That's why I'm here. I am an anime fan more than I am a gamer. I could not care less about building up the perfect strong team and winning the game. I want to hang out with Cynthia. I want Brock and Misty to be my friends. I want to meet Ash on the road. That's why I'm here. So I love that aspect. Like, that's the only reason I'm playing Masters EX and not just replaying another Pokemon game that I also love, because the world is so big and there are so many games to play. So for that aspect, I like the items and stuff it's interesting. I don't know that I care as much. Like there is like some fun, I guess, in the randomization, like, never quite knowing yet who you're going to get. Like the same reason like we do like the mystery grab bags a con, or like we buy the mystery pack of pins or the gachapon machines. Like there's some fun in the collecting and the randomness of it. But yeah, like especially when it comes to the characters, I want to see what character I will interact with next.
Yeah, I mean, there are good parts of that, but obviously, I think the game has like a hard spending per day limit to sort of limit some of this. And this, because gacha is considered like gambling in certain countries or lumped in with it, there's certain countries where you cannot play this game anymore. And that's also why a lot of the mobile games are moving to a subscription model so that they can get around some of that stuff. Let's see. But speaking of the characters, the next thing I want to move into is there's a lot of customization. There's like all these areas where you can level them up, not just by doing battles, but by applying items to them. And like they have a sync grid for each character where you can add in additional skills and stuff like that. There's so much optimization stuff, which makes it, to be honest, quite grindy, which gacha games often are. And just in case you didn't think you need that, there are some challenges that are in the game. Pretty much there's always something that is really difficult. And like all the computer opponents have way more HP than you would at the same level and stuff like that. So this that's what's part of what encourages all that stuff there. Sort of this asymmetry in what is otherwise presented as an asymmetric game. Sort of getting a little bit of my complaints or whatever, or criticisms out there, but going back to the customization itself, I mean, it's nice that it gives you that control, but like I said, you kind of sort of need it sometimes to find the exact right combination for some of these really complex challenges and stuff. I don't know. And that tried to cover a lot of ground there, but what are your thoughts?
I definitely can see why it's a complaint for some people. This is definitely a game that at certain points caters to the gamers who like really do the EV training and understand how to use your effect type moves and increase your speed before your power and all those stuff. Like there's a lot of tutorials the games give us, like all the games give us, about like using this critical hit buff before doing this type of attack and all those kinds of things, and the strategy of it all that because I'm just there to have a good time, will always ignore and just flamethrower everything. And that works well for me in most games. This game, less so. This game, I need to strategize. I need to EV prepare. I need to optimize the right stats and things. And that is not, again, I'm just here to meet Cynthia. That is not as fun for me. So I can see a lot of characters who, again, are just not really gamers on that same level, having a lot of complaints and not enjoying it. But the people who are like really into stats and strategies and whatever probably really love this game because they love optimizing to the nth degree. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely some like super knowledge or super expert type stuff in there where you're like, for certain challenges, you have to find like, okay, what's the one thing they don't have a defense for? And like, who are the characters I need to use to exploit that? And, like if you're super knowledgeable, you can probably figure that out. But otherwise, sometimes it's just easier to look up what other people are doing there. And they've even added a feature to see successful teams or whatever it's called. So you can see what kind of combinations might be the best to use against this particular challenge. To give you some hints there. So, yeah, I do sometimes have an issue. Like I said, also the asymmetry of the computer opponents having way more HP than your folks do. They have some other limitations, but it depends how you feel about that one. All right, well, let's talk about the presentation qualities of this one then. First of all, I want to talk about the setting. Now, this game takes place in Pasio or however it's pronounced, which is an artificial island somewhere in the Pokemon world. And we found out back in 2020 from that data that was extracted from Game Freak is that there was a prototype map of this game that was shaped like a boot, suggesting that originally this was supposed to be based on Italy, and maybe Game Freak wanted to keep that for themselves if they decide to do a region based on that in the future. But that also explains a lot of the music having that very European feel, and definitely some Italian aspects with the accordion, which isn't just Italian, but you sort of get the idea there with the songs there. So
I do feel like I've gone to Eurovision with it, yeah.
But that explains a whole lot with it. And, there's some original characters we should mention, notably Prince Lear, not King Lear, Prince Lear is the sort of master of ceremonies running the island and stuff, and he's got a couple original characters with him. They have obviously a lot of characters from the games. One character from the anime. They've done Ash. I don't remember if there's a Meryl trainer in there. They could theoretically bring in Tracy if they really wanted to, which would be interesting. But they did bring in Ash during Journeys as a character there. And so on and so forth. And so you have all these characters, and they have interesting interactions with each other. Obviously, like Team Aqua and Team Magma, all the evil teams are in there. So Aqua and Magma have some interesting things to say about an artificial island. So they definitely thought about that after they changed it, I guess. So interesting stuff. But I do want to kind of talk about the dialogue. Most of this game, outside of the actual battles at least, is from a first-person view as your main character. You have a choice of a male or female character. And what's interesting to me is that there's kind of a parasocial aspect to this game. Like a lot of the other characters, not all of them, some of them are a bit dismissive of you, but a lot of them are unusually, I would say, interested in you as a character, especially as time goes on and you build yourself up. But they seem like really want to spend time with you and stuff. this is technically it's supposed to be like a friendship simulator rather than a relationship simulator, but it does kind of give up that vibe there of them being very, very interested in you. I don't know, Anne, how do you feel about that one?
I mean, again, in a game that it's like big draw is that you can befriend and fight alongside with people from these games that you have loved, these characters that you have grown up with and loved, and you can fight at their side and be their friend. That seems obvious. I would want them to be interested in me. I want to interact with these characters. Like, that's the selling point of the game. So I love it. I love that Brock and Misty want to be my friend. That is why I'm here. So yeah, to me, yeah, well done, Pokemon. You nailed it.
I suppose so, but I had mentioned earlier that seems like some of the more popular characters get more like there's something called a Signa suit, but there's also various costumes based on various events in the game, and it seems like the more popular characters get more of those. And I don't want to go too far into detail with this, but it's hard not to notice that the character designs, they've taken a little bit of liberties, particularly with some of the female characters, let's just say, in terms of their proportions compared to the video games. So they've made some alterations, I guess, so to speak. But however you feel about that. So, like I said, there's a definite, especially with the trainers lodge that they added a few years ago. There's a definite, like I said, parasocial aspect that people sometimes like to make fun of, and especially in some ways that we wouldn't do on this discussion series. Let's just say that. So that is sometimes a little bit weird and off-putting, to me at least. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, as far as this game overall, I like it mechanically. Some aspects, it has some very frustrating aspects to it. But I mean, and they'll keep going with it. We don't know exactly how much money they've made. It's nowhere near the moneymaker that Go is/was or anything like that. But it certainly keeps going on and on. So and they keep adding new stuff to it. So I think it'll be around for at least a little while longer. I don't know, Anne, what are your sort of thoughts about the gameplay, the experience, and all that stuff overall?
It's hard to say because on the one hand, there are some unique aspects to Masters EX that like are really fun and really worthwhile, and I do love a lot. But at the same time, there is so much Pokemon games in the world, and so many games in the world in general, and so like, what do I really want to keep playing this one when I also have to finish Legends ZA? And like technically I haven't gotten 100% completions on Legends Arceus. And sooner or later they're going to come out with a new Pokemon game and I'll want to play that. And like I've not played all the mystery dungeons yet and I've realized that I have been lacking in my life because I haven't. So like, is this game really on my list of like I got to add it to my very limited time to play video games? I don't know. And that maybe for other people it is, and that's why it's been going. But yeah, it's definitely, it offers things that Pokemon Go doesn't, in that it adds in the character aspect, which for those of us like me who kind of enjoy Pokemon Go, okay, but we're really here for the character interactions and the stories and the relationships that we have built in our minds with these characters and their stories. Like that appeals more to a certain type of player. And maybe that is going to be enough to split the difference and keep it viable for many years to come. I don't know. Whatever this data says, I guess.
Yeah, so the game definitely has merit. It also has some unusual aspects I guess I just needed to call out there to get off my chest a little bit. It may explain why I sort of shifted from this over sleep despite the two games not really being, one is not the replacement for the other intentionally,
Sure.
But yeah, not a bad game. But all right. All right, I've done recording there.
Alrighty.
Let me see. Yes, got a comment related to my proportions comment there. So yeah, they felt a need for whatever reason. Yeah, kind of a bit of an odd one aspect of, like I said, don't want to go too far into, but you notice it.
Some people shouldn't design. I don't know what to tell you.
Like, all that stuff is approved by the company. Okay, let's move
right,
on from that.
right. Like, I don't know what to say.
Let's move on from that. In any case, other stuff that's going on. I did want to mention there's more possible activity on that real life Pokemon pinball machine. Like I said, I'm still a little bit skeptical, but apparently Stern is launching a new machine next month. We don't know exactly when, but they've told distributors there is a new machine coming. So be ready to get your orders in. Since they didn't announce anything new at CES this year, that kind of lends credence, especially with the Pokemon Presents next month for Pokemon Day 30. So we'll see if that actually does come out. Like I said, the more immediate thing is if that is a thing there, then they would probably end up putting the pinball video games for Pokemon on NSO. So you can look forward to that.
How far would you go if there was a Pokemon pinball machine that you could
I shouldn't
play?
have to go too far, especially since the Stern is based in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and I'm in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they should be, assuming they do get it out, officially announced next month, they should have it in person, either at an event there or at the Midwest Gaming Classic in April, which is in Milwaukee. So I expect to see them there.
Good.
So
I'm happy for you.
if this is a thing, and they may well have it at like some of the regionals, internationals, or worlds this year. That would not surprise me at all if they did that there. So we'll see what happens with all that. But hopefully, like I said, if that is for reals, which no guarantee until we see it. But so that's one thing I'm looking forward to. I'm also hoping, I've been keeping an eye, my the local cinema here, including the one not too far from my apartment, does digital showings a lot to fill in, especially on like lower traffic weekdays to bring folks in. And they did do ones for like the first two of the alternate universe movies. And I'm wondering if we're going to see some re-shows this year, especially potentially leading up to like the Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Galaxy movie. That would be a good way to get folks in a few weeks before that to make sure they come back in a few weeks for it. Even though like Detective Pikachu was by a different studio than the Mario CGI movies that have been coming out. So that's a little bit different. And
I'm surprised.
So
it's been a very long time since we've had like the main company Pokemon movie.
Yeah, well, we know from, again, that extracted information, they were working on an animated movie that didn't involve Ash, and they shelved that. Now, maybe they've brought it back out after a retooling. Yeah, there was a movie involving Mew and a couple of new characters that they were working on.
Exciting.
You can look up the art on it.
Yeah.
But basically, we know it was shelved some point, and who knows, maybe they reworked it a bit and they'll have it ready for this year if we're lucky. I don't know, but it's more likely we get some reshowings of previous movies, which would still be nice there. Probably the first couple, and the Detective Pikachu, of course, would be a good one. So I've been watching that on there to see if they get that. I'm sure like all the apps will get special stuff over the next year or so for that, especially since this is the 10th year anniversary for Go. 2016 to 2026. Yes, it has been that long. So it's interesting now that we're getting to games that are still around. But I'm sure Masters will have stuff and all that stuff that we'll find out more about, especially over the next month or so as we get into Pokemon Day. So that's some stuff. I do hope there's at least one other side game, assuming we are getting Generation 10 for the holiday season this year. I do hope there's at least one new side game besides. Not that I'm uninterested in Well, it's not Poketopia because that's the place from Battle Revolution. Pokopia, or whatever it's called. Hoping we're getting something besides that. And we still need to get, speaking of NSO, we still need to get those two GameCube games. Hopefully those are coming out at some point. Like I said, with the possible real-world pinball table, those could well be coming first for the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. So keep an eye out for that, especially, like I said, over the next month, if that is Stern's new table. They really are working on that. So, yeah, anything else you wanted to add, Ann?
No, just excited to just keep interacting with the world of Pokemon. Like doing this show with you, like I definitely have encountered a lot more Pokemon games than I definitely ever played when they first came out. So it is fun to venture away from the TV world of anime and Pokemon that I'm very familiar with and venture into these games.
All right. Well, we'll have to see what happens when we do our next discussion, either next month or maybe in March. Some of that's going to depend. I should remind folks, I will be presenting and presumably covering. I need to put in a press request for Anime Milwaukee to let them know. I have to look at their guest list. I'm sure they have somebody in there. They pretty much always do. But I am doing a presentation on machine learning media restoration. So be on the lookout if you're going to Anime Milwaukee that first weekend in March. I should be there. I'm also looking at some other another convention for doing that. I have to check in back with those people to see how they're doing. But that is sort of the gist there. All right, folks. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you later.
Thank you.